country, because at that point, I think they realized that if the Shias and Sunnis, the indigenous population of Bahrain, remains united against the ruling family, that they wouldn't be able to last, especially if the British were to withdraw. And that's when they started to very intentionally create a separation between the Sunnis and the Shias. There are unwritten laws about where Shias can live, where they can rent, what jobs they can work in. They started to politically naturalize tens of thousands of Sunnis from Yemen, Syria, Jordan, Pakistan, and so on, who they bring to the country, give citizenship upon arrival, and a job in the military or police. And so they've created this, private army that is loyal to the ruling family that they use to crack down on the indigenous population of the country. And they do this with the backing of the West. I mean, when you look at the reactions from the Western governments in regards to 2011 and all the 2011 uprisings that happened across the region, you'll see that there's quite a difference between how they responded to Bahrain versus other countries, especially with the entrance of the GCC Peninsula Shield and forces that were brought in to crack down or help crack down on the protests in Bahrain. You saw, Hillary Clinton at the time, who was the Secretary of State, coming out and saying that Bahrain has the sovereign right to invite foreign armies into their country to help crack down on a peaceful uprising. And so there has been this prolonged experience as a Bahraini, this prolonged experience of, the oppression coming from the ruling family themselves, the very clear and intentional sectarianism that they're trying to create within the country to divide and conquer, and then the backing of the West and the enabling that the West provides to the Bahraini regime to be able to continue to do what they're doing, to continue to crack down. But I think more specifically right now on what's happening with the war on Iran by Israel and the United States, I mean, the Bahrainis have not been shy to talk about their relationship with Israel and their relationship with the Americans. I mean, in 2022, there's a video of a Bahraini official talking very openly at the Munich Security Conference, I believe, about how the Bahraini government is actually actively cooperating with the Mossad and receiving members of the Mossad in Bahrain. And I wouldn't be surprised if Israeli intelligence techniques and tools are being used to target Bahraini human rights defenders and activists. And then they also talked about, the king's son spoke at the Aspen, I think it's called the Aspen Security Conference, where he also talked openly about how they were the first line of defense against Iran to protect Israel and the United States. And so when the Bahraini regime, the ruling family, is so openly saying that, they are pretty much a proxy for the United States, and they're out here defending the Israelis and working with the Mossad, I think, that explains a lot in regards to the Iranian reaction to the Bahrainis and the American installations within Bahrain.
Yeah. And you've said that over the decades, the kind of accusation has changed in terms of how protesters or critics are painted. So what we've seen over the last few days among some of those that have been arrested is accusations of sympathies with Iran, or even directly helping Iran or the IRGC. How do you assess some of these charges that we've seen in recent days?
I mean, look, we've been hearing from the Bahraini regime that we have pro-Iranian cells and Hezbollah cells and terrorist cells and so on for decades. I mean, every time there's something in Bahrain that the government needs to use as a narrative for a crackdown, or when they want to target the Shia indigenous population and so on, we see yet another claim that there is a terrorist cell. What we haven't seen, though, is real evidence showing that this is true. I mean, we've seen time and time again, even some of Bahrain's own allies come out and say that this is not true. I mean, even in the Bahrain Independent Commission of Inquiry that was, created and paid for by the king, they talked about how the claims by the Bahraini government about how involved Iran is in the Bahraini uprising of 2011 was actually inaccurate. And so this is something that isn't new to us as Bahrainis, to see the government yet again coming out with these accusations and these claims. Where I think the focus needs to be is the fact that we now have an individual, 32 years old, Sayyid Mohammed al-Musawi, who spent 12 years of his life, from the time he was 18 until he was 30, in prison as a political prisoner, was released at the age of 30, and now at the age of 32 has been tortured to death after being subjected to enforced disappearance for several days.